Hi there. Today I'm taking a look at a wine from New Zealand's North Island. Here we have Te Kairanga's Runholder Pinot Noir. So we're in the Martinborough region, right in the south, and this is the 2021 vintage of that. Te Kairanga, one of the older wineries in the Martinborough region. It was founded in 1984 as a winery. However, it was the homestead of John Martin who actually founded the township of Martinborough, gave it his own name, in 1879, having bought the land all around. He bought a huge estate, sort of 33,000 acres, divided up into just over 300 farms to sell off, and developed the town. And if you see the map of Martinborough's town today, you can see it still has the shape of the Union flag, which he decided it should have. So it's a square with a sort of a grid of streets, but running from the centre to the corners there are other roads as well, like the Union flag has. So this was John Martin's homestead, and unfortunately the soils there are some of the prime soils that you find in the Martinborough region. So they've got two vineyards by the winery, the McLeod vineyard and the Home Block vineyard, that are both on the sort of the 25 metre deep alluvial gravel terraces that are some of the best Pinot Noir growing soils in Martinborough. So they've been fortunate with that. These vineyards are planted to a wide variety of clones. So you've got clones like the Abel clone, you've got California clones like 5 and 6, you've got clones from Dijon like the 115, 667, 828. So there's a wide variety of clonal fruit going in there. So this is a wine with a combination of a lot of influences. Within Te Kairanga's range, they have a top wine that they market under the John Martin label. There's the Runholder. The Runholder is supposed to reference John Martin as well, because he never actually grew grapes here. Obviously, he died by that stage. But he had a sheep farmer, sheep run, so he was a run holder. And then the estate level Te Kairanga wine sits below that, both in terms of price and quality. So we have a wine here that has a number of different styles in terms of the fruit input. Quite straightforward fermentation in stainless steel tanks, aging for 10 months in oak. The winemaker here is somebody called John Kavanagh. He was previously at Neudorf, a highly respected winery in Nelson, and I think he came to Martinborough because he wanted to make Pinot Noir on some of these, from some of the vineyards with these exceptional soils. The estate here is quite large. As well as the two vineyards around the winery, they have two other vineyards elsewhere, and in all they've got I believe about 100 hectares of vines, so a fair sized operation for that. Mostly Pinot Noir, some white varieties such as Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, and I believe Riesling. The winery has been owned since 2011 by the Foley Family group. So Bill Foley, an American investor who has quite wide interests in New Zealand's wines. Actually, he owns. They also own Grove Mill. They own Dashwood. Also in Martinborough, they own Martinborough Vineyards, and then they have Mount Difficulty down in central Otago. So quite a broad spectrum of good quality wines invested in there. So somebody who's doing quite a lot to push forward the quality of New Zealand's wines, and probably quite beneficial in terms of sales to the US as well, I think, having those connections. So let's have a look at this wine, shall we? First thing to say is, for Pinot Noir, that's got a nice depth of colour. It's quite a dark red. It's not opaque, I can see through it, but that's not a pale red colour by any means. So let's have a look at the aromas and see what I think of those. there's a real velvety, inviting richness to that. There's a texturalness, there's ripeness, there's developed notes in there. So you start with a sort of a red fruit that becomes more of a black fruit. So red plum going on into damson and bullace, that blacker sort of plum-like fruit. Maybe even getting over to a stage of slightly pruny development, and opening up, not quite to the stage of sort of dried leaves, forest floor, that sort of note yet. There's still quite a primary note to the fruit. And I guess there is an underlying cedriness there as well that I haven't mentioned. So let's have a taste. The wine's probably medium bodied. In some ways it feels a little lighter because it's lovely fresh acidity that's lifting the fruit and making that seem quite delicate. The fruit has quite a sort of a lifted red plum, lifted red cherry note, but then there is that sort of just start of slightly developed pruny note at the end, in no way marring it. I mean, it's actually lifting it. It's quite high toned, black fruit. Think, you know, very ripe black cherry, that sort of thing, almost heading over into a sort of a black olive sort of note, with a savoury touch. But I mean, this wine is completely dry, but in terms of its richness, it's nice and rounded, and there's a juicy red to black fruit at the finish that's lasting quite nicely. The wine, according to the label, has 13.5% alcohol, and that seems nicely balanced. It's not particularly hot. The cedary tannins are fine. They're quite smooth, but there's a little bit of mid-palate grip, and that may be being accentuated slightly by the alcohol. But and that's the sort of thing that would settle within a year or so. There's nothing that you think isn't going to smooth out and allow the wine to show its fruit more fully. So I think beautiful wine now, possibly will be better in a year or two. I wouldn't think that it needs long aging, because although it's got lovely freshness, the fruit is to the fore. It's wonderfully approachable now, and just a really nice example of quite a broad, ripe style of Pinot Noir without quite the sort of the earthiness and the real sort of black cherry overwhelming fruit that you might get from a really full-bodied example of an Otago Pinot. So I think that's a delicious wine and would pair beautifully with a large variety of sort of mid-weight foods. I wouldn't put it up against anything with too strong a flavour, but I think that's got lovely fruit that's lasting very nicely on the palate. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. That was Te Kairanga's Runholder Pinot Noir from 2021. Bye now.